And good evening and welcome. If you are trying to figure out how to get a recipe together for tonight's dinner, you have locked into the wrong show. If you're trying to figure out how you're going to get the ticks out of your dog, you are on the wrong show. However, if you want to know about Bay Area sports, and if you want to know about the San Francisco 49ers, then you are locked in, baby. You have your game face on. I am Richard the Razor Ewing. I'm with my co-host, Mike the Shoe Shumann. Mike, what do we got tonight?
Well, the Bleav Talent Network does have those kind of shows, so I haven't heard that intro yet. Very good. Joining us today, former 49er all-world cornerback Eric Davis, second-round pick in 1990, Jacksonville State. Now, most people would think that's in Florida, but that's in Alabama.
Really?
Three-time All-Pro, two-time Pro Bowler, Super Bowl 19 champion, of course, 1994 season. And he's one of those cornerbacks that didn't mind hitting. 14 forced fumbles. I know you take pride. 38 picks, 5 defensive touchdowns. And here's one you might not even know, Eric. You are the all-time leader in consecutive NFL playoff games with at least 1 interception. 5 games.
People say that. I'm like, I don't know. It's like, really? Did that happen? Yeah. But hey, I'll take it.
All right, 94 NFC title game, third play of the game against the Cowboys, pick 6, 44 yards, furthest you've ever run in pads. And
not true. I played offense growing up. I've run farther.
And forced a fumble later in the game, Michael Irvin. That led to a touchdown. So that was the #1 ranked defense back then. So, Eric, thanks for joining us. And right out of the chute, we've talked NBA, the bubble. We've talked Major League Baseball with Bill Lasky about how that's working out. They're having struggles there. And now the NFL is on deck. And I know, just talking with you briefly and following you on Twitter, you, like myself, I'm not sure this is going to work. What's your feeling?
I just find it very difficult to find a way to keep this going, especially if you are going to follow the protocol and really subjectively check the guys and do what's right by the guys who are sick. Let's just give you the scenario that came down last season. You play the games, you get to the end of the season. The Niners reached the month of December, and every game they played and every game the Seattle Seahawks played was for first place in the NFC. It was for home field advantage. Okay, let's say we get to December and Kittle tests positive. And let's just say that Trent Williams tests positive and Sherm tests positive. Russell Wilson tests positive. Are you going to tell anyone? That's what I'm saying. Are you really going to take into account that we could lose these players for 3 weeks easily, or we could get home field advantage and win a championship? Because I'm not even going to say guys aren't going to get sick. Guys are going to get sick. Okay? We know that. Guys are going to test positive. How accurate are you going to be with your testing, and how honest are you going to be with the results? That's the part that scares me. Shoot, we played the game. I know there's a whole lot of things that happened to me that never hit the injury sheet.
Right.
It's not going to hit the list. We all know that. So this is just another one of those things that, okay, well, a guy lost some time. Well, you know what? He's got a bad, he tweaked his back, or he's got a hamstring. Is that really what's going on? So that's the part of it that gets me. How are you going to do this if a team comes up and any team, I don't care what the team is, the Baltimore Ravens go into it and their offensive line is sick. It could easily happen. Do you go into that important game with all your backups playing? So I just find it very difficult the way things are structured to see getting through this season.
Well, to your point, me and Shu talked about this a lot when we came on the beginning of the season. And even when COVID shut everything down, Eric, we saw this and we thought, okay, first and foremost, and I've said this time and time again, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's a very valid point. I mean, I basically played sports coach sports, love to watch sports. I watched you run all over the field and cause havoc for teams, and I loved it. But the thing is, and I've said this again, I got a problem with somebody going out here and entertaining me, and there's a chance that they could die from it. You know what I mean?
Well, there's a chance you can die playing football anyway.
Yeah,
that's a gladiator sport.
But if you
wait, that part of it, let me jump in right here. That part of it shouldn't bother you because that's what ball players do. Football players put themselves in harm's way every single game. You can literally not leave that field, okay? And you know that as a player. So that's a part of the fearlessness that you have to have. So my thing is not a question of, guys could possibly lose their life. It's for me, the answer, the question is, do you have protocol in place that is going to do the best possible job of keeping them safe? That's all I ask, because you can't take away the danger of football. Even with COVID-19, you can't take away the danger if you decide to play, but you can, just like with injury and everything else, you can try to put rules and protocol in place that says, this is what we have to do to keep everyone safe. That's the only thing I'm questioning as to whether or not they're doing.
So you're talking about the whole thing, and I understand where you're coming from too, because you're talking about the fact that there was what was it, a few years ago, one of the big talk of the NFL and whatnot, they even continue, was the concussion protocol. The fact that you had players that were getting concussions, and it was really causing a strain mentally. You've seen different players react to it differently. So to your point, I get that, but this is kind of different in the fact that once they leave that field, okay, and they do become positive. Now you're talking about the possibility of family members getting infected. See that?
Yes.
That's where I got a problem with that. Because if it was just them, it's like, okay, look, you made the choice to go out there. You knew what was going on. And yes, protocols are there. However, now we're not just talking about those. We're talking about the fact that, hey, when you go home, you can infect your sister, your brother, your mom, grandmother, grandfather, and now that becomes very, very serious.
Of course it's serious, but you also, if you have the protocol in place where you're testing these guys, like they said, they're testing them all the time, then you should know that you are positive. You should be informed by it, and then you should be quarantined from your family.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying. Actually, in my opinion, this is what I said, that the NFL has enough money. But we all know the big boys club. To get into that tree house, you got to have a lot of dollars. They have enough money to make certain that they have protocol in place that's testing these players all the time. In my opinion, these NFL players should be safer than anyone, and their family should be safer than anyone, because these guys should know that I got sick on this day at this time, because the testing should be in place. If not, they've been lying, because you're supposed to be positive before you walk into these buildings, into the facilities. I mean, you're supposed to be negative before you walk into these facilities. They're supposed to be checking all the time. If they do that, players should be fine, and their family should be fine. So all I'm saying is make certain that you're doing the things that you say you're going to do, as opposed to doing the things that are necessary that all teams do to win games. Okay. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and all of us, I mean, it'd be a tough decision if we were playing right now, for instance. If you got a young kids in your family, do you want to go play? Some guys are opting out. 49ers don't think anybody's going to opt out. Number one. Number two.
Shoot, no one opts out of a championship. That's why.
No,
they think you think you have a chance to win a championship. That's why.
Well, they're in that window. So, and number two, like for instance, Phillies head coach Doug Peterson tested positive. So I don't think the protocols are quite where they need to be right now. For instance, your head coach gets it. He's got a quarantine for 14 days, which is 2 games. Who's going to take over there? You got a
That's
coach.
my point.
You got and you remember one guy got the flu, 10 guys had it in the locker room. So got to be protocol for replacing these players, getting them healthy. And it can, you talk about there's danger, but this could have lifelong effects with your heart, your organs, and things of this nature if your body reacts to it. So I don't know. If you had to make a choice right now as a player, would you choose to go back and play? And
Well,
because like a lot of guys that are opting out get 150 grand to 350 and
Mm-hmm.
it's taken out of their salary for next year. So some guys with no mini camps, no OTAs, no training camps know they're not going to make the team. I'll take that 150 as a fringe player and walk away and come back next year. So a lot of guys who are opting out, I think, are more fringe players like this. So, but do you think you would come back and play this year if you were still playing?
It depends on which Eric you're asking. If you're asking, a rookie Eric Davis, so rookie that's trying to make the team, would I play? Of course I would. This is my dream to get into the NFL. Right. I'm going to try to do it. A young player, second, third year in the league, of course I'm going to do it because you're still trying to climb that ladder and do things. Now, you ask a 10-year veteran, Eric Davis, that understands the game, that's the business, who's been, one of the team reps, your player rep and all of these type things, that you understand what this league is all about and the business of the league. Now you have to start thinking about it because, yes, you're thinking about your family. You're thinking about, life after. You're to that point. Those first few years, you think you're invincible.
Right.
Then you reach a point to where you start to see that there's life after, and you start to think about the quality of that life after. So as an older player, like you see Chung and guys like that up in New England, where they're saying, you know what, I can pass on this one because I still have talent to play. It's not like you're going to come in next year and say, we don't want you.
Right.
You're still going to get, it may not be in New England, but you're going to get a job. You know that. So
Odell Beckham talked about that today, just what you're talking about. A veteran player doesn't need the money, and he doesn't think he can play.
Yeah, and you look at it and you start to tell yourself as a veteran player, it's the same thing we talked about. Would a veteran, so I already told you, a young Eric Davis, of course I do it. A veteran Eric Davis, you have to show me the same way you have rules in place, you have the protocol in place, that this is the way the game is played. These are the things that are supposed to do, and this is the platform in which you play the game, that you have a chance to succeed or fail. You have to show me, as far as my health, that you have something in place that is actually workable, tangible, and you're not just pulling it out of your tail. Then I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm gonna play. I'm a ball player. I'm gonna play when you give me a chance. If you're just making it up as you go, no, give me the 350, and I'll see you next. See you next year. Yeah.
Well, watching the 49ers walk in on local television, it's almost like it didn't even cross their mind that COVID is there. They're coming off a Super Bowl loss. They want to get back to the Super Bowl. They're on their revenge tour. And I think, a majority of those players, they're just balls to the wall, ready to play football.
That's true. Now, first of all, that revenge tour thing to me is absolutely hilarious. I'm like, there's no such thing. I'm sorry.
No,
you lost. You lost last year. This season has nothing to do with last season. So you're revenge of what? What are you revenging? You don't get to play them. There's no 1-1A Super Bowl. There is no revenge tour, so you need to throw that away. You can come back.
Not only that, Eric, to your point, you look at the fact that, hey, when these guys do come back to play, okay, the players they played with last year, some of those guys ain't there.
Thank you.
So you, and by the way, the guy you're upset with that caught that touchdown over you,
he's not there.
He's probably not there. So what revenge are you thinking you're going to get? You're not.
That's the thing about football. Every single season, and I've told people this forever, we all know this, every season is different. Every locker room is different. The chemistry changes. When you bring in one guy, you take out a guy. The offensive huddle with Trent Williams at the left tackle, he's good. I personally think he's an upgrade. As much as I love Joe Staley, I think Trent's better. He's a fantastic player. But the chemistry, the personality, it's different. Okay. So that changes things. Yeah. So it's all different every single season. It's a different group of guys. And even the funny thing, even when you play with the same guys. I played with Tim McDonald and Merton Hanks for years and years and years, but their personality was different every year.
Right.
My personality was different every year. As you do things and you accomplish things and you learn more about the other guys, it all changes. So that revenge tour thing, these guys are coming in, they're ready to play. I know a lot of that is to talk yourself up because you didn't win the year before. I get it. Been there. Losing to Dallas killed me. I get it. And, like I said before, after 93, when we lost in Dallas, I literally took 2 days off. I took 2 days off and went back to working out because I was like, I can't take this. I got to find a way to get better to do that. So I understand that, but they need to stop with this revenge tour. Nobody cares. No.
And thinking about what you're saying with many camps, OTAs, or training camp, basically preseason games, that's when you develop that chemistry that you're talking about every year. So it's going to be a little tougher, for them to do just that. And I don't think they're not going to be on the same page as they think they are when they start next year, if they even start next year. So, all right, let's talk about the team a little bit. The big story is, they brought in Trent Williams to replace Joe Staley.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, Kittle is the one they're trying to get signed up.
Yeah.
And players are slotted per their position as to how much they can get paid.
This is true.
We talked about, Richard and I, that Shanahan has more players like Deebo Samuel, Kittle, that are more like weapons. They're not specifically receivers or tight ends. They'll run a jet screen, let Deebo carry the ball. Kittle does a lot of things. And and I think, too, with not sure what the salary cap's going to be the following year, they're going to kind of wait and see before they sign him up. What's your feeling? Do you give him more than he's slotted for, which is 12 to 14, or just let him play out his contract and tag him a couple years and go from there?
Well, there are two ways to look at it. Number one, when you say that these guys aren't slotted by their position, yes, they are. They have one. It doesn't. If you look at the roster, it's going to say tight end for Kittle. It's going to say wide receiver for Deebo. Right. They have a position, and those positions. That's
changing in the league, though.
It hasn't changed on the rosters yet. So as long as it's on the rosters, when you go to negotiate, it's going to come into play. It's like I can't play corner and say, you know what, but I could play quarterback. I could possibly play it, and I want quarterback money. So that's what happened. You have a slot. You have a position. It's the same thing I was telling everyone about Mostert when I was like, he has no leverage to get a new contract because he's a special teamer. They don't consider him. And everyone's like, well, he's the starter. He's the best runner. I'm like, no, he's not the starter. The Niners don't even list him as a starter. Even when he starts. Yes, if he takes the first snap, they don't list him as the starter. They don't view him as a starter. So back to Kittle. Kittle, this is the thing that guys got to understand. You're on your rookie contract. You have far excelled beyond the expectations of anyone. I never want to hear this nonsense when guys talk about how great, and I told them when they were talking about John Lynch and the great job he did and all this stuff. I was like, no, John, you get lucky with Kittle. I was like, I can't give John Lynch credit for Kittle. I said, I can't give him credit for Bosa. I was like, every GM in the league at number 2 would have drafted Bosa.
Right.
Every GM I said, now Kittle, if you thought Kittle was going to be that good, you would have drafted him before the 5th round. You would not have there's no way. So with that being said, Kittle has exceeded expectations, but you're still a tight end. This is this is the thing that you've played enough football. Tight end it's an important position. But can I win a championship without the best tight end in the league? Can I win a championship without the best tight end? Yes, I can. I don't have to have the best tight end. And that's the problem about that position. It's like the right guard position, left guard position. It's like, does having the best one make me a better team? Yes. But can I still compete at the highest level without that guy? Yes, I can. And that's where Kittle is. So understand, I get the whole weapon thing and all of this stuff and all that, but you're still a tight end. So I can make you I can make you the highest paid tight end because we can have the argument. I'll have with anyone that says Kittle's the best tight end in the league. Okay, I'm not even going to try to fight you on that. But the best tight end in the league, the highest paid tight end, makes $10 million. Am I going to pay him $10 million more than the other guy? No, because what happened? Because this is the thing that you got to understand that people got to look at. The salary cap and is probably going to regress.
Right.
And who do you lose? Because think about this championship window that the Niners are in right now. They have a chance to compete for championships for probably the next 3, maybe 4 seasons if done correctly, where you can look at this team and this roster, and it's a good one with young guys that you can compete for championships. Can you give up $5-6 million of calories of salary cap space for Kittle? Because if you do, you don't keep Trent Williams. Okay? You got to start looking at it, because if you pay Kittle 50, people are talking about he should get 16, 17, $18 million.
No.
Trent, then you're going to have, if you do that, then Trent Williams is going to have to get 20, 25.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay? It's going to destroy your cap. And I'm going to go back to where I said, I love Kittle. I want Kittle to be here. But if you pay Kittle, if you pay him, the highest paid tight end is getting $10 million. 11, you give Kittle, as I said before, $13 million. Not only are you paying him for his position, you are paying him above market, and you're eating up some salary cap space, but you are also saying that we are taking care of one of our own. I think that is more than enough. I don't think you should exceed that number.
And he'll take it.
He should take it. I think that if they get anything above 12, he's crazy not to take.
I agree.
This is the thing that bothers me about this, because say you do that, say you give him 13 mil, okay, and his agent balks because his agent is thinking, hey, you know what? In 2 seasons, the next tight end is going to give 15 to 16. Okay.
Well,
that's how it works.
My guy is worth that right now. He's gonna argue the point. Hey, you're in the Super Bowl because my tight end, who I represent, okay. Hey, put up this many numbers, and he's the number 2 tight end in the entire league.
Well, that's what
argument. I don't agree with you. I agree with you. I think you're right. I think at the end of the day, if you give him 13, it's like, hey, he should take it. But we've seen this movie before. Happened with Mostert, okay, prime example, okay. Didn't like what was going on, decided, listening to his agent, you know what, I want to be traded. It was like, dude, really? Come on. You got to this because the coach put you in a prime position for you to shine, and you did, and that's good. But to pop off and say, oh, I want to be traded, I get more money, this type of thing, it's like, well, no, you probably should do what you think is going to be best for your career. Because in the career area, you're right. He takes a $13 million. He's going to be a Niner for the next 2 to 3 seasons. They still have the ability to keep themselves in the driver's seat for the title. And guess what? You can re-sign Trent Williams and re-sign all the other people you need, all the other pieces you need. So my biggest problem that I have with him coming at him that way is the agents. They cause 3 times more of a problem for situations like this. Shu and I was talking about this the other day. There shouldn't be no more. What is it? What did the quarterback for the Chiefs?
Mahomes.
My goodness, really? 10 years? Come on. Mahomes ain't gonna play no 10 years. Come on.
Well, guys, understand the contract. The contract has nothing to do. Well, first of all, I want to go back what you just said about what someone's worth. No one gets paid what they're worth. Kittle won't get paid what he's worth. His agent can't say this is what he's worth. You get paid what you negotiate. Nobody gets paid what they're worth, and you negotiate based on the leverage that you have. Kittle does not have as good as he is. You can say he's the number 1, number 2 in the league at the tight end position. He doesn't have the leverage to negotiate a $20 million deal. They know that that's monopoly money. Why? Because this is the reason why. there is not a single team, the other 31 teams will not pay you $20 million because the highest paid tight end in the league gets $10 million. No one's going to pay you 20. So that's monopoly money. It's not even real. I don't even have to think about it. So when you say go back to like the agent messing you up, agents work for you. You don't work for the agent. So nobody is going to pay them. The Niners don't have to pay him that kind of money.
No.
You don't have to think about it. And when you say, his agent can say, well, he's the reason you got to the Super Bowl. No, he's not. The defense is the reason you got to the Super Bowl. There are too many negotiating points for the Niners to say no. And then I can look at the history of the league. Even you think about Tom Brady and the greatness of Gronk and all of this stuff. Tom Brady won a whole lot more games and Super Bowls with Gronk off the field than he did with Gronk on the field. Okay? So you don't have to have the best tight end. I'm going back to that to win a championship. But you need – go ahead. Go ahead, Shu.
You've seen him play. He's an injury waiting to happen the way he plays because he just doesn't protect himself. And I think they thought that because they brought in Jordan Reed today from the Redskins also. Shanahan drafted him when he was there. 1-year deal. He's 30 years old. He's had 7 concussions. So if he stays healthy, he'd be a good, reliable backup. And I think they think with Debo out, they're going to play a lot more 2 tight ends. So I think they brought Reed in for that reason. Let's move on to the cornerbacks. I think that's kind of weak. Richard Sherman, a little long in the tooth, playing in that zone coverage. He got burned man-to-man in both playoff games. And, Witherspoon and Mosley on the other side. What do you like about the cornerback position with the Niners? Is Richard Sherman, does he have another year in him or no?
Well, yeah, I'm absolutely the most excited. I keep being asked, who am I most excited to see play? And I say Sherm, because I'd like to see if Sherm. Everyone's talking about long in the tooth and all this stuff. Sherm was all pro last year.
I know.
Last I checked, that means he's pretty good.
Yeah.
So I'm okay with Sherm. I have absolutely no problem with Sherm. I personally would like for Sherman to move to safety. Because I think Sherm will be a Pro Bowl safety. I think moving Sherm to safety, you're going to see the same things you saw out of Merton Hanks. If you move him, you will have a player that just makes it very difficult on defenses because he'll be rangy enough. We know he'll come up and hit. He understands football. He knows how to play the ball in space and make plays, and it's going to give you another huge cover guy in the middle of the field and playmaking ability in the middle of the field. So I would like to see that. So, but right now, I'm not saying that because Sherm can't play corner. I like Sherm.
He's got –
what's that?
He's got another year at that position.
Yes, he definitely does. And then with Mosley is going to – E-Man, I like some of the things that I saw. And he'll learn. I mean, you can't bite on anything on 4th and 15. I mean, he just played that play wrong. And that's a young player. And when I was a young player, I did some of the same stuff. I remember the first game I ever got benched in was the 3rd game of my career. It was the first game in my entire life I had ever got benched in, and it was I blew a coverage when we were playing the Washington Redskins, the 3rd game of the season in Candlestick Park, 2nd or 3rd game, something like that. It was early, and I flat out just blew a coverage. And Art Monk scores where I just blew the coverage, and it was when George literally told me to go. George Seifert said, "Go sit down over there because I do not want to see you the rest of the day." I told you all day long, and I didn't play. That's the only game in my life that I was ever benched. And it
who replaced you?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
I have no idea who it was.
You were so mad you couldn't even think.
Yes. So E-Man will learn from that.
What about Witherspoon?
Well, that's where I was going.
He's built like Sherm.
Spoon has everything physically to be a high-end corner. He has everything that you need to be a high-end corner. He's got to get out of his own head. What happened to Spoon is that he came in, he was grinding through preseason. All the things we were talking about they don't get this year. He was grinding through camp, grinding through preseason, making plays, came off early in the season, made plays, and then what happened? He got hurt. And a young player doesn't realize that the game doesn't slow down. The game has no feelings. It doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't care that you were injured. Everyone else is playing. And he came back, and nobody was waiting for him to play himself back into shape. And then it got into his head. I mean, and it happens to everyone. Joe Staley came back, and good luck the first day he came back, and they had Seattle, and oh boy, what's his name? I can't even think of his name right now. That was up in Seattle that just destroyed Joe Staley. Clowney just destroyed Staley. But Staley being a vet, you saw him the next week better. Next week, he's back to being Staley. Spoon couldn't do that. So I like Spoon. I'm not one of those guys that are like throw Spoon away. I think you give Spoon an opportunity. I think he's going to learn from what just happened, and I think he'll be a player for them. I'm not concerned about the corners. And the other guy that everyone has forgotten about, if this guy is healthy, he'll be starting. Jason Verrett.
Yeah, I was going to say Verrett.
If Verrett is healthy, if Verrett is healthy, and if Verrett and Sherm are on the other, if they are the corners, they will give people fits. If Verrett is healthy and Sherm is Sherm, they will be as good as any tandem in the league. And the other guys will have an opportunity to learn from them. So I'm not worried about that. I like the secondary period. I like Jimmy. I like Williams. I like everything that they have across the board. I think that unit plays well together. And then they got 172 high-end D linemen in front of them.
I know.
You know,
would you have loved to have that D line? Jesus.
Oh my goodness, I would have loved. Now I cannot. Now that being said, I had some pretty good D linemen, but that's the DB's dream, man, to have that kind of heat hunting a quarterback. Come on.
Okay, let me ask you something, because you were touching on something I was going to ask you about, the fact that, you know, unfortunately you got benched for the first time, and it just so happened that it was George Seifert. I was going to ask you, what was his coaching style like? Was he more of a defensive coach, or did he focus more on offense?
Oh, well, you know that George came up on defense. I mean, like the Niners, everyone always talks about Bill Walsh's offense. And Bill Walsh's offense is tremendous, and it has won you look at the way the West Coast offense spread around the league, and it has probably had more influence on this league and won more championships than any other offense if you really look at the ones that have been at that level. Well, just like Bill Walsh's offense won 5 championships for the Niners, and we can go to spread it out. George Seifert's defense that he put together was doing the same thing. I mean, George built that defense and pieced it together, and more, and we added on to it and all the time. So he's a defensive coach. That was the way he earned his stripes. Yes, he has an understanding of offense, but George would run you crazy because he was a defensive coach. Remember, he was a defensive back coach. George
I was there, yeah.
Yes, George would get on my nerves and run me crazy.
Right.
He would run me crazy every little thing you did, because the technique of playing that position, the importance of playing that position, he would critique everything you do, and I hated George. I absolutely hated George. But I literally, and shoot,
as
you
a
remember
coach.
As a coach, and shoot, you remember when Eddie D took us all over, Mr. D took us all over to Vegas, and we had the ring celebration and all of that and everything, which is one of the greatest things that an owner, and that'll never happen again. There will never be someone who doesn't own a team to go back and do what he did for all of us.
He brought all 5 Super Bowl teams back to Vegas for one weekend party.
Wow. And it was incredible. And I asked him, why did he do it? And this is what he told me. He said, well, I was going to bring the first one back because it was their anniversary. And he said, and I realized that some of the guys on the first one were on the second one. And he said, and then I realized some of the guys that were on that second one, they were on the third one, and they wouldn't have really understood what it meant to be a Niner if the guys from the first one hadn't taught them. And he said, and then it just continued on to all of you guys are connected, and we can't celebrate one without celebrating all of us. But we did all of that, but we get there. So now back to George. Over there at that event, I told George, I said, George, I literally, and this was the icebreaker for me and George, because I'm saying I hated him as a coach. But after time off, asking you about George, this is how intense he was about everything. I said, George, I want to thank you. And he looked at me, he was like, thank you for what? Because me and George had some days out there on the field where we MF'd the crap out of one another. And I said, I want to thank you. And he said, thank you for what? I said, George, I realized something. I said, I wanted the best for me. I wanted the best out of me. I said, I realized you wanted the best for me and you wanted the best out of me. And I said, you know what? I think we achieved that. So thank you. And he just looked at me and I said, yeah. I said, I get it now. I said, thank you. And, he looked at me with that little smirk he gives you, and then he took that deep breath. And he was like, okay, Eric, okay, all right.
Man, we could do 2 hours with you, E.
But because we're running out of time, I just want to give a hats off to and mention some condolences to the Barbieri family. Ralph Barbieri, the original, passed away within the last 24 hours. I'm known as Richard the Razor Ewing, but he was the first Razor doing sports and talking sports here in the Bay Area. I'm just glad to be a part of this. I've been doing it now for about 4 years, and one of the reasons why I get to hang out with great guys like Shu and you too, Mr. Davis. So thank you. This has been Gameface on the Bleav Talent Network. Catch us next week, and understand, if you come on, you better have your game face on.